welcome everyone to the board briefing, January 3rd, 2024 board briefing. We will start this meeting at 2:01 rather, p.m. And if Chris is ready, we'll jump right in with Sand Lake Road dump site.
All right. There we go. Morning, good afternoon, commissioners.
Good afternoon.
So I'm going to go through and share my screen for a few things. I find that's just easier to talk to.
You bet.
I just like pictures. So one of the problems we have in Tillamook County in general is when we have big excavation sites, where do we put material? And you know, it's a significant thing for not just the contractors, but for the county as well. This site right here, in order to remove the material, the amount of material to be removed for just the small slide is 1,200 cubic yards estimated, plus or minus. They're not really entirely sure until they start excavating. So a normal dump truck carries 12 cubic yards of material, so 100 dump trucks of material will come out of this site. And the contractors were asking to find out, well, what did we have available? So the soil nail is hiring local contractors to do the excavation work for that. So they've gone out for quotes, been getting asked a lot of questions on places to put that. And one of the locations that popped up was the site that we own on Sand Lake Road. So we take it from this picture, you can see that. Now the site on Sand Lake Road is we don't want to put asphalt. We want clean material to go on Sand Lake because that will help the value of the property, or won't detract from the value of the property. So the guardrail, the asphalt, everything like that would be not. We're not proposing to put that into the Sand Lake site. So the Sand Lake site, to kind of put a little better into perspective, is the T intersection with Cape Lookout. That's Sand Lake going southbound towards the site, and over here is Highway is 101. US 101 is right there, just coming up on the screen. So we looked at that. We do have this corner right there that we have used for material, and this is oftentimes we'll do tree removal. We'll put the trees there, and then people come and cut and use. We don't allow that, but we do leave trees there. And if somebody comes by without permission from us and takes care of firewood, then that is a site that's not on the road. We run into other situations when we're in this area here on the south side of the long straightaway on Sand Lake. When that culvert blew out and we had to remove a lot of material, we ended up taking all that material and moving it to this location because there really wasn't any close proximity site to that. So we're looking at about 500-600 cubic yards of material there that does not have a home. This is, and we also have the Sand Lake slide area, about 1,200 cubic yards. So we said, dawned on us the other day is that, well, one of the sites that could be potentially used was this site that we own, which is this piece of property here is county owned. And we also, from Public Works, we're always in need of finding a place with some of our newer operators where they can use a grader. Grader is a great one to, understand how the blade works. When we do training like that, it's usually on a gravel road. So what do people see? They see an operator and a trainer out there, and we're not doing work, and it's all the county employees, this and that. So this gets the kind of an opportunity to take that material. So looking at this site, it went through hazardous cleanup through a solid waste with ratio, where basically the county road crew and the solid waste group had gone in here and they've done a lot of demolition out of here. We removed the buildings, the trailers, the boats that were back there, RVs, trailers, campers, some RVs, trailers that were being dismantled back there, cars. A lot of that material we had recently, a couple summers back, or maybe the last summer, had removed a lot of that material. The site's kind of an interesting site. I'm going to change my screen to this one over here. So just to verify, are you looking at the a map that's really color coded now?
Yes.
Okay. So the map in front of you is the statewide wetlands inventory. So we're looking to see what out there is going to be limiting to us using this as a fill site beyond the value of it as sellable. So the property sits approximately here, and you can see the creek that comes through here. So you deal with all the wetlands on either side of this, and this is our property. So we're not bound by wetlands. And the creek that runs through there is also, you can see it right on this one. So it's to the side of where we're at. Now we'll kind of rotate this into 3D just a little bit. I'll turn these guys off. With my computer catch up. All right, there we go. I was concerned I was going to lock it up. So you sit there and you start looking at this. Get in a little closer. So county crews have removed the boats, the buildings, all this through here. There is still some, remnant. We didn't go through there with the sieve, and we know that there's some bits and pieces of like headlights, shattered, little tiny things like that are out there. Kind of flip around, you can see this is all fairly flat to the road, and it kind of comes up. There's a couple of benches that already exist up there, just giving you a better perspective for the site with some elevations. We also looked at this from a slightly different take on it. So while that one kind of bogged down just a little bit, Sarah had also, and she can speak to some of that. So she looked at this from a permitting point of view, and we need to go through the land use verification process on this for a fill site. So we would again not use, not dump pour material in, but rather use good quality, not good quality, but a lot of this is actually road base that we'd be looking at putting in. So we have clean material that we would be putting in on this private site. So Sarah, I know you're on. While I'm zooming in on this, could you talk briefly about the about permitting requirements?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, commissioners. So Chris and I looked at this site. What it would be required is called a land use verification if the county decided to use this property as a fill site for the spoils of the Sand Lake Road project. The land use verification, essentially what it is it's a very straightforward, no public notice required review. And the purpose of the review is to confirm that the fill is being placed in an area that is not mapped wetlands and is not within an area of special flood hazard. And so the permitting path requires the applicant to provide a site plan of where the fill is to be placed, the nature and content of the fill, and then the amount of cubic yards. That's essentially a one-time permit. So this is a process that we implemented years ago because we do not have a grading and a filling ordinance for Tillamook County. So this is how we can be sure that anyone placing fill on property that is doing so in a manner that is consistent with other regulatory provisions that relate to natural resources in sensitive areas.
So thanks for the filler, Sarah. I'll go ahead and now I'm in on the side a little better. We can see that prior to the demolition and in between and previous to the area that I just showed you, is there other structures that were back there? It'd be, if this were to be sold as a residential or potentially other use, then this area back here is already, it's already had the current impact to it. And what we're proposing is to use this back area here. Initially, the contractor for speed of this would be to, a lot of this good material road based, is use some of that road base to improve the road coming up in here, and then have the contractor dump material. The county crew would come in, using, our graders, excavators, backhoe, and contour the land back there to better shape it. A lot of it primarily would end up in this area here, which there's a lot of small remnant pieces, that's out there. I wouldn't call it, it's not trash. We picked up the variety of trash, but we could scrape that, haul it off, we could fill that with material. But we'd basically be looking at putting some of the material back in here, in this area. Once the contractor dumps the material, county forces, the road department would go in there and use it to shape it, contour the land. We would seed it, we would put straw on it and then seed it, and also with erosion control around the perimeter of that for protection. So I'll jump off my maps and see if there's any questions. Like to use it for 5,000 cubic yards, and permission for the road department to use it as a site that we could use greater operations in there until such time as the project's sold.
And Chris, the other thing we talked about was making sure that you didn't disturb more than an acre of land so that a DEQ permit would not be required.
That's correct.
So that's the other parameter that we want to make sure we stay within.
That's correct.
So Chris, how big is the lot in total?
40 acres total, but the 40 acres is, I'll throw my screen back on because you'll get a sense, just thinking again. We got a lot of information on it.
Did you talk about the depth of what that would be?
They have not.
Okay.
So the lot size, this is 40 acres, and that's in its perimeter. We're really only kind of focusing on this piece right here.
We can't see it
So-
here. There we go.
There we go. It takes a second. So if all that's 40 acres, we're only looking at a small piece here. So the material that comes off of that slide is you're looking at the material just out of the slide. If you had a 330-foot long stretch, that's 100 feet wide and 1 feet deep. That is the amount of space that is required to put this material into. That's assuming a flat plane and you can stack everything 1 foot deep. That's about the amount of space that needs for that. Obviously, there's some places would be deeper, some places would be shallower than that. So that would cover the size of the slide. We also, if you were to take the entirety of the material that's in the T intersection and the slide, and you stack it approximately 1 foot deep and no deeper and no shallower, you're right at an acre. So we still have the ability to do that, assuming that it's 1 foot as a consistent height across the land. That's on a flat surface, so as you start contouring, you have gradient on slope grades, that actually changes the dynamics there as well. Pretty simple.
So Sarah just said we have to limit it to less than 3/4 of an acre to not trigger something with DEQ.
An acre,
An acre,
Yeah.
right? So
1 acre.
1 acre.
1 acre.
Okay.
So 1 acre of disturbance or more kicks us into a 1200C permit. And at that point, it's really not that god-awful complicated. It's just a form that we fill out that I sign off for. So every single one of the bridge constructions has a 1200C. The Cape Kiwanis parking lot has a 1200C. These are DEQ permits. I don't know what the 1200 stands for. C is for construction. So this would trigger a 1200C construction permit because we'd be disturbing more than an acre. Right now, we don't propose to do that.
Okay. So you started this out by showing us that curved corner property, that like cut the corner property there at the top of the T. But
Yeah.
you're not planning to use that, or were you showing that to us as an alternative, or what?
No, so the problem with that is when we were on Sand Lake and we had that culvert blowout, is when we excavated all that material out in order for us to put the larger pipe in, this is where all that material went to. Primarily because we had no place to put it.
And it's still
And
there?
because we were doing that,
It's still
and
there?
because yep, go ahead, can you hear me?
I said, and it's still there? Is that what you're?
It's still there. We have not, we needed someplace close that we could put the material to, and that allowed for us to do that pretty rapidly. But the problem with that is that in South County and even the rest of the county, there's just not a lot of fill sites that are available for this, for any material of consequence.
And so, Chris,
And
you're
that makes
also,
it difficult.
you're talking also about adding that to this other site, right? Which then frees up that corner again for future emergencies?
Correct, and that's not, I did not talk to Rachel about that one, so sorry to catch you a little off guard with that, Rachel, but it's 12, we're looking about 1,200 cubic yards coming out of the slide, and this is about 600 cubic yards. Again, these are all rough estimates. We're not looking at dumping any, all clean material. We would not dump any asphalt or guardrail or anything else like that, just be clean material. So that would, by removing this material, it now opens that area back up for, use again.
And the 40-acre lot is zoned residential
Farm,
farm. So does it qualify for residential?
I'll defer to Rachel and Sarah on that one.
Thank you. So there was a house on the property, and there is an opportunity for someone to replace that dwelling within 5 years of it being demoed. But the farm zone in and of itself is not a residential zone, so residential development typically is not allowed.
Okay, I knew there was a house on it, so that's the thing, we would have to sell it to somebody who wanted to rebuild the house? When did
Right, and we could do
demo the
that
house?
permit. Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember. Rachel, was it this last year?
Okay.
The 4-year clock is ticking, and so in terms of selling property, because this was a foreclosed property, correct? So in terms of selling property, do we have any better clarity on whether or not we can? Or are we still in that weird window of not knowing if we have to give the value?
We can sell, other counties are selling, but the board thus far is elected to not proceed until there is clarity.
Okay.
Was this the property, the bigger one, that had a lot of junk in the back of it, and then it was a bit of an eyesore for quite some time?
Yes.
And then the other
And
one
that's-
on the corner, make sure I know where you are, there was a smoldering fire there for about 3 months. Is that,
Right, so when we did a lot of work on Cape Lookout by removing trees through there, the slash, we end up burning that at that T intersection.
okay.
So we've got a lot of people that look at that, so we burn that slash over an extended period of time. So this is, we do that occasionally on that site, it's our burn site. And that long burn, that was because we had done a lot of tree removal on Cape Lookout. But currently also when we did the grinding on Sand Lake Road, that's where we stacked up all the grinding. And all that grinding is now being used as shoulder material for, Cape Lookout actually used a lot of that shoulder material. So it's a great stage area, a great staging area, not essentially a long-term storage like it currently is being used today. It's also a great spot for, if you need to meet somebody in the area, that's a great spot to meet them.
So Chris, or Sarah, or Rachel, or anybody, if this fill is put as you're recommending, or part of it's being used to improve the road that's there, and part of it's being used to simply fill and contour, given that this land is farm, does that change its value? Does that make it not, I mean, it looked like it had quite a few trees on it from what I could see. So, does it change its ability to be sold and useful as farmland? Are we depreciating it significantly, making it unsellable?
No. Put the map back up on the screen while we have this discussion. My opinion, it does not, but again, this is my opinion. So when you look at this, while it's owned farmland, it's pretty heavily, forested.
Yeah.
So from a farmland, it would be forestry. And when you look at the terrain a little better, we're essentially being isolated right in this area a little bit on the road coming in, but this area. So the ability to harvest back there would not be diminished. The actual farmland itself, not a farmer, but I don't see this as being, and Sarah and I had this conversation about prime farmland or high quality farmland. Not a farmer, but I see this as logging, not necessarily farming. So diminishing the value as we're essentially shaping the land better with the fill material, I don't think takes away from the value, but that's my opinion, not necessarily fact.
Okay, and we're not talking about putting fill where the home site previously was. So if someone were to purchase this, because it's likely to be purchased for a hobby farm or a small amount of tree removal or something, there's still a home site, to Commissioner Bell's point.
So looking back at which home site, right? So this was the main home site, but if you go back, you can see some other structures that were back there. This was I think you've had a number of different locations. You want a house that's right off of Fan Lake Road? Yes. If you want a house that's back here, you still have that. If you want to nestle further back, you certainly could. I think the site itself opens it up to what kind of home do you want. And I don't think that what we will do will take away from that.
So if I could jump in just with a couple of things to add to that, and then I would be interested too, if Rachel has talked about an appreciation factor to this. So the home through the replacement process that's allowed for this home site, it could essentially go anywhere on the property, right? So it's not limited to going back to that exact footprint. Typically in these types of scenarios, that is what we see because that's also where the septic tank and drain field is, right? So the house is usually relocated somewhere close. In this instance, they could put the home anywhere, meeting setbacks, building heights, etc. The reason why I asked about the depth of the fill is because we would probably want to disclose where the fill was located on the property. It might involve some additional excavation for a new home site and could involve some additional excavation for construction of a new septic tank and drain field, which is going to require excavation anyway. So I would say just disclosing that is probably what we would definitely want to do. But as far as the value piece of it, I'm not sure.
And this property was up for sale previously and had no buyers, is that correct? So we have had it on the market or on the courthouse steps or wherever we have that kind of sale.
You know what the elevation is of the land itself, or the frontage right on the main drag there, Sand Lake Road?
Yeah. The year elevation is 224 feet approximately.
Wow.
That's at the road.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at the road. The knob is about 30 feet high, thereabouts. So when we look at the fill coming into, if you excavate, we're dealing primarily with engineered fill. And engineered is in the sense of the material. And we're talking about good quality material. We're not talking about mud that came out of the hillside, generally speaking. There are going to be some sand that comes out of that slide area that would be not conducive to building, but most of what we would bring in would be better quality soil for construction than what is present on the site from a materials only perspective.
Sure.
So the table that you build, so to speak, the area that you contour could even be the building site?
Could be. It could be.
Okay.
I guess one of the questions I would have maybe for Rachel, just thinking about EPA, I mean, if we make sure it's clean material, so there's no asphalt, there's no other pieces into it, that wouldn't kick this into some sort of phase 1 assessment later on, correct? Do you know?
I don't think so, because if somebody's gonna develop it, they're not gonna have to get a phase 1. They'll just be getting the site free and clear. It would be a government agency, I think, that would have to do the phase 1.
Okay. So are there, so it sounds like from our perspective, we don't necessarily know if there's a devaluation that would occur because it's always in the eyes of the purchaser. There's 40 acres where they could find a home site, whether they use the old one, whether they use the built-up platform. There's options there. Chris, if you don't do this here, what are the other pieces? What's the pros and cons here of this versus a different site?
So we've got a lot of pros with this one. I think we've covered that. The con to this is in order for the contractors to dispose of the material, they're running their trucks to 3 different locations, possibly more. So 3 different locations is so far what I've heard from the contractors where this material would be deposited to. That also leaves us with a con is that we have that pile sitting on the T intersection with no home. The con to that, while it is going to 3 different locations, each one of those locations are going to charge a fee to deposit that material in. We pay, in the Tillamook area, we're paying $8 a cubic yard to deposit material. So we used to have to pay for deposit or fill, but we are now. The negative to that is it could take longer because you have 100 trucks and you need to cycle those trucks to someplace close, and if they are driving further away, they are going to take longer to remove that material because we don't have so many trips units per day. So it would slow down that by a known amount of time.
Right. So it's the cost to fill plus the cost of the driver and the truck while they're making their trips, both of which.
That, and more importantly, I think it's the duration. Is with 100 trucks rotating through.
Right.
Same truck, making multiple trips.
Yeah, takes more time for the driver.
Right.
Okay. So it feels to me like there's not a huge reason why not on this. Is there anyone that here's a huge reason why not? I know, Rich, you did express some concerns earlier about cost evaluation. Do you want to say more about that?
I don't remember speaking up about.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were worried that it would make it less desirable for
I
sale.
don't know.
Okay.
I think putting fill on a property limits a potential buyer's ability to build where they want, which could value it, or septic, where the septic would go.
Yeah, we can't hear Rachel.
Okay. So you just said it could
I
potentially.
didn't talk to them.
Yeah, it could change where a buyer could put a home or where they could put a septic, therefore could change the desirability of the property to buyers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, beautiful site, and we're using it as a dump site, and so it would seem like there would be some evaluation, but I have no idea.
Okay.
But this is a natural fill. This is not construction site full of concrete and sewer pipes and who knows what else as far as we know, right?
Our material that we would be put in there, we would not put the asphalt, we would not be putting it, shouldn't be any concrete that would be uncovered. The guardrail, none of this, we just put in clean material. So the material that we can see from the slide and the material that we excavated out from Sand Lake Road itself, that was all clean material. Not having the concrete, or excuse me, the asphalt, we wouldn't put that on this side.
What's the mix of sand in there, do you know?
One more time?
What's the mix of sand in the soil, do you know?
I don't know.
Well, it's pretty sandy soil around there, I know that, but, you know, that may or may not have impact on how somebody wants to build, and they may have to build up out of a flood zone to begin with, so.
So
No
Joel,
cell phone at this location.
Joel? Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This issue's kind of already been raised, but I just wanted to share that, from the perspective of this being a foreclosed property that could be subject to some recent changes in case law that I think everyone's aware of, that the state's currently working on a legislative fix for, I think, like with any of these properties, it could be subject to one of those claims, whether we try to sell it or not. So, whether it's used for this purpose for now or it's come back on the market, I think it could be subject to a claim. So, for that reason, I don't have any concerns with this either.
Thank you. Sarah?
Well, just thinking this through, because I do appreciate the concerns about, I'm not so much worried about a building envelope, but just the septic system. I would be happy to have Chris Keola go out there or maybe continue the conversation with Chris Lady if you were concerned about septic feasibility. That is something that, we could have, absent a test pit, we could have a general conversation with Chris Kula to see if that placement of fill could compromise a system. I don't think it will. I think they just have to clear the fill off and then put the system in with engineered fill on top of it. So happy to pull him in if you would like me to do that.
Yeah, I think more information about future usability of the site would be reassuring to me, yes. And maybe
Okay.
he'll, as you were saying that, I was picturing him, walking off an area and saying, this is the ideal place for a septic system, and it'd be great if we could leave fill off of this area. So if he has some advice like that, I'd be interested in that.
Absolutely. So I could get him in touch with Chris Lady and Rachel if it's okay. They could go and maybe walk the site. And if Chris Kiola has any concerns, then they can communicate those back to you and the board.
So one thing to kind of put out there, we're still trying to anticipate contractors moving out to Sand Lake Road next week. And the three subcontractors, the excavation contractors are going to be moving the material. They're sharpening up their pencils right now so that
what's
we
our
can get them under
timeline?
contract.
Yeah, so what's the timeline, Chris, when you need to know if this is gonna be available?
Today is Wednesday, so probably Thursday, tomorrow. Or I tell them that it's got to go to a different site. This is kind of one that we didn't think of right off the get-go, and had we would have started asking these questions earlier. We started looking at septic tank fields and compromising to that. Again, we're looking at a 40-acre site, and we're not looking at filling a massive hole in the ground with material. So we're not looking at, a significant height of fill.
Right. I guess that's what occurs to me, is there's a lot of space, and it's not in the wetlands. It is at an elevation where you would expect there would be options for a septic fit. Oh, yeah, we're gonna get Chris, aren't we? Yep.
No, perfect. Thank you, Chris.
So we're going to put Chris on the spot because he has no idea what we're talking about.
What are we talking about?
Welcome, Chris.
The county acquired the Sand Lake Road property, 17470 Sand Lake Road. Rachel and Chris, David McCall worked on a cleanup for that as a 40-acre piece. Chris, do you want to put a map up?
Yeah.
So what we're talking about potentially taking the fill from the Sand Lake Road slide and putting it on this property in this area. It has its own farm. It has the opportunity to have a home rebuilt, so it's got it had a.
Because it was the old house that was torn down.
That's right.
Close to the road.
Right.
Okay.
So what we're concerned about is if Chris uses that to put the Sand Lake Road fill. So we're talking about 1,200 cubic yards. Probably spread it out in a 300 by 100 foot building pad with a foot deep. So we're trying to avoid a DEQ 1200C permit. If someone were in the future to buy this property, what we're concerned about is with the placement of fill at that depth, what would that do potentially if someone wanted to build back here and put a septic system back there?
You cannot put a septic system in fill, on fill, under fill. So there would have to be some, it kind of depends on where the new person would want to build the house. If they want to build it down by the road where the old house was, I would just make sure there's an area down there that's not touched, that's left alone. I mean, it's a large piece of property, and theoretically, regardless of where you put the fill, there's got to be another place on that property for a new system. We would just have to do a site eval. But there's got to be, as long as you leave some spot on that property open for a good drain field area, which is like 50 by 150 would be what you would need to be safe.
We haven't identified any wetlands or anything on the property that would also then further dictate or limit an area where a system could go.
And a lot of that's upland too.
Right.
So, you're not covering the entire property with fill. So as long as there's a spot, and you can never dictate where someone wants to build a house in the future, but just don't take the best drain fill area on the property and put a bunch of fill on it. But you don't know what's up there. I mean, you haven't covered the entire thing, so I guess leave a spot open.
So what we could do, what I proposed is the contractor use a site, they come in and they end up the material. And then the county road department would come in and relocate the material and shape the material to the terrain. So what we could do is after the contractor has dumped the material, is that we could chat with you and say, hey, you know, from your best guess as far as areas to avoid placing fill, that could be something that can work out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
You know, on a large piece of property,
Yeah.
there's probably 30 different places to put a drain field. But whoever buys it's probably going to have a spot where they want to put a house. So if you don't know where that is,
Gotcha.
yeah. I mean, it could go almost anywhere.
Yeah.
And are you talking about putting most of the fill down in that central point? Okay.
Yeah, my screen froze up, so Sarah, I'm gonna assume that you pointed to where I was
Yeah,
at.
it's
Yeah.
on the back end of the knob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and if there's the old house site down by the road, and if there's an area down there that's just kind of left alone, I mean, that property has a huge frontage along the road, so,
Right.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine, you just need to not mess everything up.
Good advice.
Yeah, don't mess it all up. Well, it seems to make sense to me that there's enough acreage there, and if to Chris Laety's point, if Chris Keola were to just do a quick site view and say, you know, this would be, if they were gonna put a house on this backside, leave this section right here so it would be appropriate for a septic, go ahead and build up the road that's already coming up there and then use this section over here. You know, I mean, I'm good with that. I think with 40 acres, there's still the option for someone to find a spot and it still has value if anybody wants it. We've obviously put it up for sale once and it wasn't yet ready in value in the world.
Okay.
How was it offered for sale before? Just an open bid, or was there a price, or what, how did that work?
It was an oral auction, annual land sale auction for the real market value, which I think it was $339.
So nobody reached that threshold?
There's a lot of interest, but yeah, and then we had a couple of buyers afterwards, but it didn't come to fruition, and we pulled it after the Tyler Hankin case.
So there it
So I
sits.
think it would be sold by now if we were advertising it.
Well, it's a good sized piece of property, and there aren't so many of those. Well, there are, but then they're farm and forest, or, you know,
Which this is too.
yeah, it is. But there's possibilities there. I drive by it frequently. Well, I used to until the road fell in. but-
So Rachel, do you have?
This will help fix that.
Do you have further thoughts on this? Okay. I have mixed feelings about it. Of course, I want to get the road done and sit to expedite it, and it makes sense, and I totally get why you're proposing this. I also have misgivings about, you know, a pile of fill in the middle of a beautiful piece of property that we spent a lot of time and effort and money to clean up. But, you know, if we have your word that at the end of this, you guys are gonna contour it and seed it, and eventually it'll just sort of look like a small hill, maybe, you know, 10 years from now, you won't be able to tell that that's a pile of fill from a road failure.
Yeah, the intent is not to leave a hill, it's to shape it with the land. And yes, the road department will go out there and we can work with Rachel to walk the site and see if she wants us to make further adjustments if she's willing to do that.
And thanks, Chris Keola.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, maybe if the best and the highest use for the property is forest, you know, maybe it should be seeded when it's all done? You were talking about, I mean, you said seeded, maybe it should be planted with small trees when it's all said and done.
Right. We would definitely seed it, and then we can always plant trees down the road if that's desired. But we definitely want to seed it to protect keep erosion from happening. Yeah.
Okay, so I heard you say you need to know tomorrow. I thought construction began on the 8th.
We need to get them under contract.
Okay,
Begins the week of the 8th. So yesterday, they were intended to be out there doing test holes to determine how deep that fiber line was, so that we don't hit it with nails. There were some complications with that. They're going to be out on Monday, the 8th. But meanwhile, the prime contractor is working with these contractors, and they need to have a place to bid on. And if this isn't available, then they'll have to bid on taking material elsewhere.
gotcha. Okay,
So is there a formal decision needed by us? I mean, this is just a consensus agreement here, so we're good with the timeline if we make the consensus agreement here.
Yeah, I think normally this wouldn't have came before you if staff just agreed, yeah, it makes sense. But
Okay.
it was just some conversation.
So I haven't heard any compelling reason not to. It sounds like it can be shaped, it can be reseeded. There's 40 acres and there will be enough for a septic system somewhere. So to me, it sounds reasonable, but not being an engineer, that's my amateur opinion.
yeah, thank you. I agree with Rachel that had it not been for the Hennepin case, it probably would have sold by now, because a number of people have talked to me about it. So I think it's an attractive, saleable property. And there were people who were holding out, like waiting for the price to go down after the auction, which it used to do before that case. So I agree with the concern that I don't want us to make this less attractive to buyers or less usable to buyers. So if that's not the case, then I think we proceed with this plan.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, all right, we have
I think-
consensus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Sarah. Okay. All right, then moving on to our next topic is Title III. We have the sheriff, yep, the sheriff and Rachel are gonna present on this one.
I can tell you that I cannot hear Rachel at all. So if she's talking, I don't know what she's saying or if I'm gonna repeat her or anything.
Okay.
The
So,
microphone was off now, so.
oh, her microphone was off, so when she talks, we'll ask her to turn it on. So who wants to start on this one?
I can start. Did you want to start, Josh?
Whichever you want.
Yeah, I'll start just going over the spreadsheet that I distributed earlier today. So this is a snapshot of where we are with the outstanding Title III grants. Recall there was a big convoluted process in 22 that landed in 2 rounds of funding between 4 different sheriff's office requests and the Oregon Department of Forestry's yard debris program. So I should probably do a little more background for Doug. So Title III we get from the federal government from Secure Rural Schools Act money, and it can go toward only the 4 uses that are listed at the bottom of your sheet there. Carrying out, let's see, developing the Firewise Protection Plan, the last bullet, that's been done. So whenever we have Title III money that comes in and it trickles in throughout the year, we do a solicitation and it only is responded to by either the sheriff's office because of their search and rescue efforts or the Oregon Department of Forestry's Firewise program. So 2022, we landed in these projects that were funded. So agreements have been made between the Sheriff's Office and the county and the Oregon Department of Forestry for these projects for the awarded amount. So I don't recall this happening before 2022 where we had more requests than we did funding. And so there was a lot of strategic thinking in what to fund at what time because the rounds were at different times. So this is where you landed, the awarded amounts. For round 1, the full amount for the Raptor and the yard debris program has been expended. And then some of the funding has been expended for round 2, and you see the balance there. So this is coming before you today because of the sheriff's request for a few changes. One is before I get into that, the account summary. There's a current balance in the account of $144,000. If you take off the outstanding awards in the balance column, there's an unallocated balance of $77,000. And so that's the trickling of funding that we've received over since these awards were made. And that would accumulate until typically we do it in the spring leading up to the Firewise program summer. So I have a tickler to keep checking in on that amount so we don't run into the issue we did where we were chasing timelines because of all the public noticing it and so on. So we are coming up upon a time period where we will be doing a new solicitation. We'll just make a decision on if the balance is appropriate to do a solicitation at that time. So there is currently $77,000 of unallocated funding. So to the proposed changes in the far right column that the sheriff is requesting, the cost for the Raptor came in higher, and that includes upfitting, correct, Josh? That was right?
Yes, the upfitting is what actually bumped the cost up higher by that $2,000.
Okay, so he's requesting $2,480 to cover those costs. To make that happen, there would be an addition of money to the grant agreement. We haven't done that before. I did talk to my contact who leads the program, and he says that that would be an allowable thing to do because it is connected to an existing solicitation. ODF may want extra money too, so it's kind of a weird request, but you can do that technically. For round 2, he is proposing to use the funds for the ATV bike for the same purpose. Sorry, the ATV for search and rescue, for an e-bike for search and rescue. So the purpose is still the same, but the mode of transportation would be different, and that would be allowable by amendment. They are only doing they've only done one of the tough books and are proposing to reallocate the balance of the $6,000 award to the search and rescue trailer, which was a request in round 2. As you see, there was no award because there was a shortage of funding. This would not cover, obviously, the cost of the trailer. And if you recall, part of the conversation about the search and rescue trailer was it would be used for other uses, and there was a concern about it solely being funded by Title III. So the concept of allocating the funds toward a portion of the search and rescue trailer would be an allowable expense. So this is a snapshot of where we are. The sheriff is proposing these changes, which would prompt an amendment to the grant agreement, which would come before you at a later date. I didn't just want to presume you would want to do that because there was a lot of strategy in the allocation of money between the sheriff's office and the yard debris program. But his requested changes are technically allowable and is looking for direction on how you would like to proceed. And Josh, if you wanted to add anything to your rationale there.
For sure. So yeah, on the Raptor, the 2480, that was just a higher price. It was an increase in the upfitting. Just goes with the territory that sometimes prices get higher. The whether we add it to that the Raptor contract, the round 1 contract, or we figure out a way to put it in the round 2, however that works, I don't really care. It would be nice to be able to cover that cost. On the search and rescue ATV, the whole premise of that was to buy 1, possibly 2, well, originally it was going to be 2 motorcycles, and that was gonna be more of a quick response because it can go on trails that four-wheelers and side-by-sides cannot. And then it was kind of determined that e-bike may actually be more appropriate, so that way we don't have to worry about lugging around gas and getting, certain safety gear that is required for motorcycles, but not as much required for an e-bike. I still think that an e-bike qualifies as an ATV. It is an all-terrain vehicle. The reason that it's been delayed is because we've actually tested numerous e-bikes that do not have the power to go on off-road. 750 watt single powered back tire is not enough to do what we need. We looked into 1500 watt, and then ultimately what we have found is a two-wheel drive 3500 watt e-bike. So that's going to be more than powerful enough because technology has increased. So that bike is only 6,000 and we're only going to get one of them. So there's going to be a big chunk of money left over from that 14.5, the original amount. I don't believe that we intend on buying a motorcycle or another e-bike at this time. So there will be a big chunk of money left over from that ATV contract. Additionally, on the tough books, like Rachel said, we've only bought one, and that is all we're going to be buying for now. The need just ended up changing over time from the original request. So there's going to be funds left over from that $6,000 as well. Like I said, whether the 2480 gets added in as an additional request on the Ford Raptor contract, or it just gets taken into account on these contracts, whatever works. But we will be spending less on these additional round 2 contracts. And ultimately, however we use the 2480, or however we put that in, but additionally, I'm asking that the leftover money from round 2 go towards the SAR trailer, which was an additional request. I will have intentions, if another round comes out, that will be what I'm asking for money. The SAR command trailer will be a custom built one that is specifically made for our needs, and which is one of the reasons why we need to upgrade. Is the trailer that we have now is not functional, and it's because it's been pieced together. So we need something custom built for efficiency and exactly what we need. And anytime something is custom built, it costs a lot of money. So that's going to be a couple $100,000 expenditure between our SAR banquet and fundraising that we do, some other charitable donations that we can get. In addition to Title III, I think we can come up with that money, but exactly what that looks like right yet, I don't know. So that is the intention, is to request funds towards the SAR trailer once these other expenditures are made. Hopefully that all makes sense and I can answer questions, but that's kind of what it is.
I would also add to this, I think there's a little bit of urgency here because the agreements have technically expired. They expired at the end of December. We can extend them. And so another strategy here maybe is you could reallocate some of the money for expenditures that he knows he wants to spend it on now, but then it could just sit there until maybe he does need another tough book next year, for example. So there's no urgency to burn the money, but if we need to reallocate to spend it on things that we know we need now, that's appropriate too. So I think you have a mix of options.
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting to switch from an ATV to an e-bike, but if you think that's going to serve the needs of SAR better, I fully support that. And now I kind of want to ride a 3,500 watt e-bike out in the trail, so I think that sounds fun. So that seems fine to me. If the tough books aren't what you thought they were going to be, if they're not useful in the way you imagined them, that's fine. I support you in not buying more if you don't think you have a need for them. I think it makes sense, since you have leftover funds in both of those pots, to use some of that leftover money to make up the 2480 difference. And then we can just start fresh with the unallocated balance in the next round.
Yeah, the tough books are still meeting our needs. It's just the need for, I believe that it was for 2 of them as our original thing. The needs changed. We no longer needed 2 of them as time progressed, and we just needed the one. So
Okay.
Yeah, and then the e-bike was again, that was not even in the conversation in the original part of things. And then Power Bikes here locally in Tillamook, that right by TLC, they offered to give us a loaner bike for the fair to be able to do patrols and things like that. And once we tried that, we actually started to think that this may actually be a more efficient ATV for our quick response on search and rescue. So we took that bike up into the woods and tried to ride it on trails, and it did not work. It was only the 750 watt. We've tried a 1500 watt, same thing. Technology has increased tremendously, and what we're looking at now, it's a brand called UBCO, UBCO, and they make a two-wheel drive hunting and trails e-bike. It's got racks on the front, racks on the back. It's got like a 400 pound, 500 pound weight limit, and each tire has a 1750 watt motor attached to it. So a lot of power.
Interesting.
And like I said, the idea is it's quick response. We would not be transporting anybody. We would not be pulling any equipment or anything like that. It's simply to respond to a lost person or an injured hiker, be able to get resources or persons to that, lost hiker or injured hiker or whatever the case may be as quickly as possible. And then we can actually start focusing heavier resources to come in. So it's just QRT, just quick response.
So I would agree with Commissioner Val. I think using some of the leftover money from round 2 to finish up the cost of the Raptor in round 1 makes a lot of sense. The money's already allocated. We just go ahead and move that over. If an e-bike is better than an ATV, that's fine. And then I think what you said was just to hold on allocating the rest of that to the trailer until there was another round of funding, or were you suggesting that it goes to the trailer? I'm not sure I understood what the rest of it would do.
Well, I heard Rachel say there's no urgency in spending it. It could just be held and applied toward the trailer, toward a trailer fund, because we don't have a date or full funding for the trailer. But I think it's fine to use it on a trailer fund.
And I think one of the concerns we had with the trailer before, as with some of the things, is making sure, since this has to be used on federal land, that the trailer wasn't fully funded by this. But I think what I've heard you say, Sheriff, very clearly is that this amount of money is not going to get you the trailer you need. It will definitely be a payment toward, therefore, a contribution that isn't in full makes sense.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Doug, question?
Well, not knowing a great deal about this, I take it this is not a use it or lose it money. It can roll forward. Okay, so that answers that. And then I don't know enough about electric bikes, but it must have, if it has the power you indicated, it must have a fairly heavy-duty battery system. And what if you get up there and you're 10 miles up a trail and the battery goes dead?
Well, and a lot of that is planning. There is a range that these bikes come with, time frame, range, all that type of stuff, and you have to know your limitations and know where, how far you can go and how far you can't go.
I have no issue from what I've heard.
Can I share my screen? One of my screens, am I able to do that?
Debbie's gonna fix it for you right now.
No, he's able to.
Oh, she said yes.
Okay, I click on share, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if is it showing you guys?
Yeah,
Mike?
there we
Yes, it's here now.
So this is, if you look across the top, this is the Hunt edition. Both tires have a motor. You can see how heavy duty it is. We won't need the gun carrier, obviously. We're not going to be up there hunting. It comes with a very bright LED light. 75 mile max range if you're charged. 330 pound max carry weight, and it can go 40 miles an hour. So it's a significant, and I guess I think there's a video. It's a significant bike. And this is, of course we're not hunting, but it's designed specifically to be able to do this type of work, and that's what we need. Whereas a lot of other bikes just have the single, they're set up more like a mountain bike. So they're taller, they've got just a single motor on the back tire. And like I said, this has motors on both ends for a lot of power. So this is what we're looking at, and up until I found this bike, we probably wouldn't have, that's been the delay. I mean, I've been to the Sportsman show out in Portland, and they had quite a few e-bikes out there, and none of them are as powerful as this one. So, but yeah, that's the bike.
That looks great.
Not very flashy, it's kind of utilitarian.
It looks fun.
As it should be.
Looks fun. I might sign up for search and
If it
rescue
was-
if I could ride that bike.
Well, hey, you sign up for search and rescue, and we'll train you, Mary Faith.
Okay, deal.
I don't even think there's a reason to put like red and blue lights on it, because it wouldn't be used for anything but search and rescue. So, you know, the red and blue lights might be fun, but again, it does need to be utilitarian,
Yeah,
not fancy.
okay.
So, does that get you what you need, Rachel?
Yes, I do need to clean up the agreements for this so it matches. So we can't just move the money in how it's paid. The paperwork needs to track. So if I'm hearing what your approach is, just from the numbers standpoint, the 14.5 for the ATV, we're only using 6 of Josh, so we have a balance of 8,500. Added with the full balance of the Tough Books, that gives us 10,500. If that savings goes toward the Raptor of 2480, that's a balance of around $8,000 that you're saying you want to go to the trailer.
Correct. And kind of as I was saying, and as everybody's talking, there's no major rush. There's a lot of pieces that need to come together to be able to make the trailer work, and it's going to take time. But yes, if we can earmark that for the trailer. The other additional thing is we're going to be selling the old Raptor here pretty soon, and unknown how much money that's going to make, but whatever, because it was bought with Title III money, that money will go back into Title III, so that'll increase the balance. And whether or not that can be earmarked directly towards it, because it was sheriff's office funds, or it needs to go into the next round, I don't know. But there is no major rush on the trailer, but I would like it earmarked for the trailer if possible.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's going to translate to amendments, but that
Okay.
I'll figure that out. So yes, I'm all set. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And Doug, at a later date, when we have another grant round, we'll talk more in depth about Firewise and what the other option for spending this money, and how traditionally we've split the money between search and rescue and the Department of Forestry for Firewise.
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, our next topic is budget committee interviews.
Yeah, Isabel, I believe, emailed to everybody the 7 applications we received for budget committee members. I did have some concern with a few of them and reached out to our county auditors and also to county council. I don't know if Joel's still on there or not.
Yep.
And I believe he got back with a letter for each of you. So I didn't know, it closed December 29th. Didn't know if we wanted to schedule interviews for some of those applicants, or open it back up, or both.
I think we ought to schedule interviews with the folks who don't have a conflict of interest. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I think there are 4 then, and I think, my thought would be to do the 4 interviews, and if we don't find 3 candidates out of the 4, then reopen it.
Yeah.
Only because if we do find 3 candidates out of I would hate to have it open and then say, whoops, sorry, we have 3 really good candidates.
Yeah.
Well, just for the record, I've read them all, but I also had a discussion with council on the phone, fairly lengthy discussion, and my view on these kinds of things is if there is a conflict or even an apparent conflict, I'd rather not go there. I think you back yourself into a position that becomes more difficult to explain. Not that there aren't some well-qualified people, and it's in a small community, I guess we're going to expect that there's some overlap and conflicts. There was one this morning on an award for the transit. So it's not uncommon in our community from what I've seen over the years. But I would agree with what was said, that there are at least 4, I believe, of the 7 that apparently have no conflict. And if they're suitable, then we're good to go. If not, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, and the other 3 were well qualified too. It's just.
Yeah,
it was
to be
conflict
fair,
with-
yeah.
They were, yeah.
Yeah. Small town living.
Okay, so do I arrange that with Debbie or Isabel?
Isabel.
Their schedules?
Isabel? To schedule the committee interviews.
Yeah, I think between Isabel and Debbie. I mean, Debbie would be the point person for the calendar, but Isabel does the coordination with the committee members, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll throw Isabel in your list.
How
Thanks,
long might
Isabel.
these interviews be? Is it like 45 minutes, hour, whatever it takes? Just a normal
Yeah.
period, sure, okay.
I think the last ones we did, it was only like 30 minutes. It didn't take that long, did it? You were the last, you were the last in the
I was the
group.
last one interviewed, right? Me and Mike that year.
We had
But I don't remember.
3 that year.
I don't remember how long it was.
I don't think it was too awful long.
Okay.
It's not like a full-blown budget session, whole day, 9 to 5.
This is Isabel. Typically, the interviews for committee members are approximately 30 minutes each. And depending on how many we actually interview, if we're interviewing everybody, we'd have to determine if we would like the interviews to be in person or virtual. So I'll follow up with everybody and get their thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Are they're all local individuals
Yes.
living
Yeah.
here, so. I always favor a personal interview because you can sometimes see a little more than you'll see there, but, whatever works for everybody.
I agree with you.
Yeah, no, in person is nice if we can do it.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. So, moving on to commissioner updates, I will share with you, because it applies to this topic, that I have a short vacation scheduled for the 18th to the 22nd of January.
Okay.
So it's on my calendar, so Devin and Isabel will know, but those are the dates that I'm out for that. Speaking of which, as the interim director of parks, I'm gonna need someone else to be the parks point person while I'm gone, and I'm hitting you up first.
Well, if you tell me what I need to do, where I need to be, then I shall do it.
Okay, thank you. So between now and then, we'll schedule some time for you to come out to parks.
Okay,
And-
well, and the next question I would ask, not that it would affect this, but what's the status of the recruitment process now? Is it moving forward? And
It is moving forward. It closes on the 14th, and as of yesterday, I think, there were 26 applicants. And I don't know, of the last time I talked to Jody about it was the week previous. At that point, there were 19 applicants, but none of them had experience with campground
I
systems.
think you mentioned they were mostly like metropolitan parks.
Right. So I hope that some of the newer applicants have some experience with campground systems, but we'll see. Yeah, but 26 is encouraging that there are that many people interested in the job,
Yeah,
so.
that is helpful.
Yeah.
So Doug, you'll also be the acting chair while she's gone?
Yes.
Which, although we don't have a meeting in that time window, your big thing will be if the weather goes really south, you have to decide if county offices are open.
Okay,
So-
like when? In other words, what, that day, that morning?
That morning, and the health department opens at 7.
You do it
So,
with Randy.
yeah, you do it with Randy and or Chris
Randy
Laity.
and maybe the cops, or do they?
Chris Laity is normally who I talk to, because Chris has his folks out there early, checking everything. So we can talk more about that
Sure.
before the time comes.
Well, it is the season, I understand that. It was really an ugly morning this morning, but, that's still in the county.
Right.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, other updates?
Just I did my Board of Forestry testimony right before this meeting,
Great.
my first one. I think it went fine. Sean said it went
It
fine.
went fine, well.
We're working to strike a new tone with the Board of Forestry that is less combative, more in a partnership style, still pushing for whatever the best HCP we can get, but really looking toward the future, which is we expect there will be the HCP and we will see revenue fall, and there will be likely an ask at the legislature for general fund for the Department of Forestry and possibly Department of Forestry and counties. So just starting to walk down that piece of the road to say, we have to minimize any ask that's going to the legislature by maximizing what we can and harvest in this HTP that will still meet what the services are asking for at the federal level. So really asking ODF to look harder and tighter at that. And then just to engage us in the conversation, so let's really work together on this, because should it go to the legislature, we're all gonna have to work together on it. We cannot be adversaries if we are at the legislature requesting that state forests become funded by the full state taxpayers. So we've all got to be in it together, particularly if we want counties to be on that same ride, basically saying, and everyone who's losing here, be it the forestry department, be it the counties, the state needs to step up for us all. So trying to shift the tone a little bit. So hopefully that's working, or will work.
Yeah.
That was round one.
Are they still having the meetings with the governor's representative that?
There have not been any scheduled in this year yet. I am meeting with Brandon Persinger from AOC tomorrow, and we'll be caught up on everything that's happened at the small group meetings, and we'll find out if in fact they have requested any dates for this year. As of now, they're unscheduled. It is the expectation that that conversation will continue, but at this point, there are no meetings scheduled, so I'll tell you more when I know more.
Okay, all right, great.
Yep.
Anything else?
While we're on forestry, Sean forwarded me the numbers today, just to kind of keep everybody up to date on what kind of projections we're getting from the Department of Forestry for the year in which we are in. So I asked Sean if she could just bring those and share those with everybody.
So each year, about end of March, beginning of April, I send to the districts the estimates that I receive from ODF and what their breakdown's gonna be. So you're getting two. One that's sent to the district on April 7th. And the other one was one I just ran that shows the 2 quarters we've gotten in so far this year. And then there are 2 quarter estimates. And I wanted you to see the difference between what they send me and what I have to budget and what they're telling us. You want another copy?
Sure, I'll take a copy to talk about over here. Thank you.
Yeah, so the top one is the one that I sent to the districts. That's what all these taxing districts, the school districts are building their budgets on, based on the projections they sent me, which are the second page behind. And they have a huge formula.
That's a $28 million one.
It's $28 million. If you look at the second one, that's with the first 2 quarters of state timber revenue that we've gotten in and thrown into my spreadsheet, along with their remaining 2 quarters that they say we're going to get in this fiscal year. That's big. That's down to 22 million. That's a big. I don't know where they get their projections or how they're doing them, but that's kind of hard for a county to look at, or a small taxing district is. And a lot of the taxing districts now anymore, after, what was it, 14, 15, when the timber fell off, they don't budget the full amount that I send out, because this is just an estimate. But I wanted to put something visually so you guys can see what this can do with the timber to the little districts that rely on it for most of their budget. I hope they don't. I mean, if you look at Tillamook Soil Water Conservation, if they budgeted a full 122 and now projection they're only going to get about 94, that's 30,000 out of your budget in 1 year. In their small district. So it was just some numbers I wanted.
Thank you.
That I see every quarter. So I'll have one more quarter that I can at least do when I get from them, and then the next quarterly projection from Kevin Haas and ODF.
Then when does it actually come in?
So January, February, March comes in at the end of April. So that's why you have to we had our first 2 quarters this year, which already came in, and then I have to look at,
So these are all projected that are attached. So we've got fiscal year 24, quarter 3, quarter 4, fiscal year 25, quarter 1, quarter 2. These are all projections. So we don't actually have the actual quarters on here.
no, I didn't put the actual quarters on here,
That
sorry.
would help next time we're talking about this.
What we've received. so
Right, like
far.
projected and actual, just so that we can see that. Because I believe you that it doesn't always come in the way they project, but I think I recall that sometimes it comes in higher. So it'd help me to see projected and actual.
I have that other one that I did that had the differences, didn't I?
You did,
I should
yeah.
attach that one.
Yeah, so if you can share that, that would be helpful too.
Yes, I can.
Because it is a challenge, and I have talked with Kate Skinner about this twice. And Kate, last time I talked with her, said that she had tightened up her projections of what she was sharing with Salem to try to get it, just more accurate. So you just got this one, which is lower, which I am assuming, since I talked to Kate, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, that maybe her information may have been part of what went into this one, which is the lower one. The other thing that was interesting to me that I found in sitting in the FTLAC meeting in December, where we looked at the modeling outputs, and they were talking about, how they had right-sized the model, because the model is based on a lot of science, and it's based on growth areas that are similar to our area. And so they look at all of that, and they said all that works, pretty well, except for in Tillamook, where we have the Tillamook problem. And I said, what's the Tillamook problem? They said none of the models are accurate. They all over-project significantly for Tillamook County. And so I asked Kate about it when I was sitting with her, and she said yes. She said the models will typically predict about 50 to 55 million board feet per year. And she said the reality for our county is 42 to 47 million board feet per year. So she said it is challenging because the models just always run it higher than what our reality is, because of the Tillamook burn having significantly scorched our soils, and then having been replanted with a fir tree that doesn't really belong here. It's not the right species to grow at the same rate as what the models would show if you had the right trees and better soil. So it was like, okay, well that's interesting, but it's been an interesting part of the conversation and trying to sift that out of the modeling that has been done by ODF, how it impacts us differently than it impacts others. So this is different. This is really based on sales and when they think they're going to be cut and what they think they're going to sell for and all of that. That just continues to there's this theoretical big pile out there we're waiting for, but we haven't seen it yet.
Right. So what you just said, I'm curious, I'm interested in what you just said, because it contradicts something Kate said to us one day that she was in here maybe a year ago when she came to visit us and talk to us, and she said that what Tillamook County is looking at with that version of the HCP, that we would be in better shape than other places, specifically because we're still harvesting the Swiss needle cast fir that other places don't have. So she said that's not, it's not going to be available forever, because eventually we're going to have harvested it all. And also we had an advantage of harvesting alder, so as hardwood for furniture making. So what she clearly said in that meeting was that those things were an advantage to us and not a problem. So I'm not sure how that.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges that we've been facing, is trying to figure out what ODF, because what's coming from the state level is one thing, and what's coming from Kate is a different thing. So what Kate indicated to me is we've been getting 47 million board feet. We will continue to get 47 million board feet. But in the model, it thinks we're going to get 55 million board feet. So the modeling is showing more than our reality will be. But our reality will continue to be the same reality we've had, with a couple of caveats. This was the other part that was interesting in my conversation with her. She said, yeah, we'll still have 47 million board feet. However, she said they will be harder to get to because we've kind of harvested everything that is close to roads, on less steep slopes, etc. She said, so your cost to harvest is going to go up in Tillamook County. And when the cost to harvest goes up, the revenues to the county and special districts go down. because your operators, it just costs them more, so they make less, and the sales sell for less because they know it's going to cost them more. So she said that will begin to impact us. As to how much, there wasn't a number that she felt like she could put on it. So when again you look in the models, it says, oh, you have more board feet than you do, and it doesn't account for the fact that in Tillamook County, we are going to have to go further, work harder, spend more to get the same amount of trees that we've gotten in the past. And then the other thing that I found out, and I've not yet had a chance to sit with the district forester from Forest Grove, but I will, is that part of our district, of course, or part of our revenues come from the Forest Grove district. And what Kate said is that similarly there, we have harvested the trees that are easy to harvest, and essentially the trees that, I'll use the word ripe, which isn't the right word probably, but the trees that are ready for harvest, right? They're mature, they're in that window where this is the right time to cut them to get your best return on investment. And she said, you're going to lose 8 to 10 million board feet out of the Forest Grove district per year because they have had a lot of Tillamook timber to harvest over there, and now they won't. So I'm waiting, I need to make an appointment. I saw Mike at a different meeting cover at it and said, we need to sit down so I can figure that in as well. So it's a very strange thing to try to take the model that they've made, which doesn't break out the Forest Grove district part of the Tillamook district, it lumps all that together, and try to see the actual impacts to our county because they're tucked into Washington County in the model, because that's part of the Forest Grove district is in Washington County, even though the revenues come to Tillamook County.
Yeah, I can see that.
So what I have asked is I have asked Kate to come visit with us. She's going to visit with us quarterly.
Great.
And we're going to talk about timber, but we're also going to talk about other things happening in the state forest. Because as we talk about greatest permanent value, and as we talk about what our forests mean to us, they mean revenue, but they also mean recreation. They also mean habitat conservation, right? There are other things, fire suppression. There's a lot of things that our forests and therefore ODF are involved in on our behalf and with us, that it just felt like if we're going to change the narrative, we also need to be looking at it, having her talk about more than just timber harvest. So she will talk about timber harvest, but she will also be talking about other aspects of ODF. So that will start happening quarterly. She's going to reach out to Debbie, I think, to get onto board meetings to be able to give a presentation for the public to hear as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear from Kate more often. I am always interested in what she has to say. And I've been thinking about the state forest land and its recreational uses and how many homeless people are living in state forests, and so I'm interested in that kind of report also.
Yeah, and so there is a training, a leadership training for ODF that is going to be held out here. I think it's in May. I have the date written somewhere. One of the pieces that they're going to do with that is a panel related to those experiencing homelessness living in the forest, to talk with different ODF leaders and emerging leaders about that issue and you know, how they're dealing with it.
Great.
So,
Good.
yeah. Yep. Interesting stuff. It's complicated stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get that it's always a moving target. I was thinking
is.
about 10 plus 15 maybe years ago, when I was with the Headlight Herald and Tim Josie was on the board and he did forestry, and I interviewed him in order to write stories about forestry.
Yeah.
And at that time, he told me about there was a lot of timber that was less accessible because it was on steeper slopes. But I know that now they're doing more logging on steeper slopes, so everything is always moving.
Yeah.
So that's changing too. That you know, they're logging now. They're logging slopes that they didn't imagine that they could before because they didn't think they could get to them, but now they figured out how to get to them. So
Yeah, they have drones fly the cables across.
right. But I'm sure it is more expensive.
So I think it's more costly, and the road building
Right.
that you have to do to get into a lot of that is apparently very costly.
Yeah.
Again, talking to Kate. So, you know, I think that there's this feeling that Tillamook County will be fine because we're going to continue to get 47 million board feet and we'll just keep doing what we've been doing. But we're not going to be able to keep doing what we've been doing in the same ways. You know, and there is additional land that's being placed into habitat conservation areas. And one of the interesting pieces in the model, when they projected revenue, again, recognizing that models have limitations, is when they projected the amount of revenue that would come off of the districts, they projected as if they were harvesting inside the HCAs at a lower rate, but still harvesting inside the HCA's. And then in the presentation, they said, but we really aren't harvesting inside the HCA's. We are applying silviculture prescriptions, which could mean harvest, but it could also mean no harvest. But the model, they had to say harvest in order for the model to be able to process.
Wow.
So we know there's some overstatement in the first 30 years of harvesting in the HCA's. Tillamook County still, when you look at the model, if you say the model's the best we can get and it doesn't account for everything, but if we just compare ourselves to other counties, we're doing much better than many, which I think is part of the conversation that we get as well. Tillamook County's only looking at a 5 to 15% loss of revenue. Other counties, Clatsop is looking at 50%. It is very, very dire for some of our neighbors. It's not good for us, but it's not as bad as it is for them. So it's, it's challenging as we continue to maintain our voice as FTLAC and in partnership with our counties and neighbors that are going to be decimated at very significant, serious levels.
Right. Yeah,
So-
of course we have to care about them. I mean, naturally
Right.
we do.
Right.
But we have to budget for our own numbers.
Absolutely, we budget for our numbers, but part of our conversation just continues to be in that vein, because we need to be pushing it with the governor's office and wherever that space is to make sure that not only do we get our 5 to 15% covered, because that can be significant for us, and that is of course the model, who knows what the reality is, but the 50% for Clatsop County is, it's something that we can't allow, we can't stand by and say, we're good. We have to stand with and say this is significant, serious for all of us, and look for that. So thank you, Sean, for bringing that. I think it's helpful for all of us, just, to figure out, to figure out how to work with what they give us.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, I don't think so.
Well, everybody got their financial report from Sean. I know everybody went through it with a fine-tooth comb yesterday because it was so exciting.
Naturally.
So, thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
They are out online too, so.
I do have a list of about 12 items, but I'm going to, most of them require a conversation with this individual. At some point, you and I you can get me up to speed. But I will, there's probably some things that you may not know that are going on. I'm getting close to getting my schedule and all working and understanding the county system and even the new parts of it. They're a pretty good system. All things considered, it's going to be fine. I will talk about Lightwave a little bit. Since my departure from PUD and coming over here, I am now the liaison, as we all know, for Lightwave, so I will continue in that role. And the general manager, Todd Simmons, will represent PUD. But as of the 1st or 2nd, actually, of December, the port is out of the picture. They are completely gone. And so I have 3 meetings with 3 prospective partners to come in. One is tomorrow, Colpack, the new, I don't know what the title is.
Executive Director.
Executive Director. Will be in Tillamook, so he and I are going to have lunch. I've not met him in person. We've just email type stuff. And so I'll visit with him about that and a number of other things. And if they show some interest and it might work for them, we'll keep talking. Monday, I'll be appearing before the college board and giving the same conversation, same presentation. President Tomlin and 2 others, the computer person, whose name I've forgotten, the lady.
Cheryl knew.
Yes. Came over to our last Lightwave meeting. We spent an hour plus talking about it. They expressed a great deal of interest in becoming a 3rd member. And hence that led to the invitation to appear before the board on next Monday. The other one, the following Wednesday, a week from today, I will visit with the 911 board. I called on the lady and I sort of written her name down. You may know the person who runs 911 now.
Tiffany.
Yes. And she invited me to their board meeting a week from today. So I will go over there. I think it's 2 o'clock, or no, it's at noon. Because we have our 2 o'clock meeting later on, so it'll be between the morning and I'll make it. So I will give them all the same amount of information and just see where it goes from there. Now, we could continue with the county and PUD, but that presents a number of problems, which is a board of two, or bringing in a third party, maybe an individual at large. But we were advised by council, if we did that, that individual would not enjoy the protections of the Oregon Tort Claims Act and a variety of other legal issues that I don't think we wanted to introduce into the arrangement. So we need to find a public agency that stands on its own and is at least active or engaged in Tolman County, which could be any of the three I mentioned. Two of them are exclusively, and the third, Colpack, as you know, is elsewhere, but they have vested interests here as well. So I'll give you more of an update on that when I know more, and I'll probably take all my findings and recommendations to the Lightwave meeting, which is the fourth Tuesday, whatever that day is. And then we'll go from there. And of course, I can't commit the county to anything until we deal with it in a formal manner. And the same I know with PUD, but and then when it's all done, there'll be some kind of a restructuring of the intergovernmental agreement that's fashioned under ORS 190. Our legal counsel, after 26 years with Schwabe, decided to open his own shop. So he gave notice, and as of first of the year, he's now an independent attorney. He might have taken someone else with him, but I told him we Lightwave would probably stay with Schwabe because they had the institutional memory and all the documentation, and they're a large firm. I think they're the second largest in Oregon, and they have others that can step up and know all about these kinds of arrangements and so on. So I think that's where we are with Lightwave. So that's a story yet to be completed. Let's see, some other things. I've inquired about the radio show, and we haven't heard back on that. Maybe Debbie knows something, but I'll fill a slot over there as I think you folks do and others. I don't know, do you ever get on the radio? You're not allowed to talk on it?
I'm sure I'm allowed. I'm fine having the commissioner speak on that.
Yes, well, and you also need some time. But okay, so that's one thing. Tonight I'm headed up to the Manzanita City Council to do nothing more than introduce myself and give them a business card, which I got today. And I will try, as I think I said earlier, I will try and make the rounds of all the cities over the next 6 weeks or so, and do nothing more than say, if here's who I am, and if you want to, you have an issue with the county, you can at least contact me, and I will put you in a position with the people who know how to do things. And and I may do the same with the school districts and possibly even some of the others, time permitting, and when I could find a half hour to go in and just say, here, because the way I look at this, it's 27,000 people. We're all involved in one or more things, whether it's schools, the county, the cities. We are, they are us, and so on. Other than that, let's see. I've had some people want to talk to me about short-term rentals, and before I set up a time with them, I'm going to have a graduate level education from Sarah, because she's the brains, I guess,
Yes.
of it, from what I've been told, and I've heard her on a number of occasions. So yes, I will visit with her. And one last question: these others I will get to you here one of these times and visit. The Oregon legislature, as we all know, will be convening in here in a matter of weeks. And there's only the two bills that each can introduce. Are we as a county prepared, or do we know yet what the agenda is, and there's something we single out that we want to be aggressive on and either testify or write letters, or how does that process work in terms of narrowing it down and sharpening our focus so that we have benefit, I guess, of whatever power we can bring?
That's a great question. I don't think we've had an organized approach. I think we have had more organic approach, like we get information from AOC about these bills are important to counties. We get information from the legislators about these bills are really important to counties. So So I don't know that we've had, as a body, I don't know that we've had a session where we sit down and say, okay, here are the bills and this is what we want to do about these bills, but we certainly could, it's a good idea.
Well, it just seems to me, and having been involved in other organizations, that you're much more effective with a rifle than a shotgun, and maybe that's not a good terminology, but you focus on what you really want to do and put your horsepower behind it and see if you can make something happen. If we go in and say, well, we like these 14 things that you're talking about, not so much on the others, I don't know that we'd have the impact. But also, and part of that question then is AOC and their focus, and you, both of you.
Right, so AOC begins their monthly meetings this month. So Friday we have, did you get on their list for AOC?
Yes, I wrote a letter and she responded back, I believe, well, no, that was the broadband office that did that.
So AOC has our steering committees, and there are steering committees essentially from 8 until 3, I think, on Friday. There's Transportation and Community Development, of which I am co-chair. Following that is Governance, Revenue. Following that is Natural Resources. So I will be attending all 3 of those steering committees. Everyone is welcome to attend every steering committee. At those steering committees, they typically present the bills that have a county nexus. So they're not talking about anything that doesn't impact counties at these steering committees, but they are talking about the bills that do. Right now, very few bills have dropped. The agendas that I'm looking at are showing they're showing LCs or legislative concepts on a few topics, but there aren't any bills that have dropped yet. So Friday there are 3 steering committees, and then Monday there are 3 more steering committees, plus the board of directors, plus the legislative committee, which will review all the bills from the steering committee. So if you just go to LEDGE, you get an idea of what's on the table.
That's all online.
It's all online. Well, Monday, yes, everything's available hybrid. Monday is also in Salem if you want to go in person and meet commissioners, but I can give you all that when we leave here today.
Yes, yeah, if I could just get online and watch it as time permits, I would
Yep.
like to do that.
Yep, and so that's the easiest way to know. And this being a short session, things are going to obviously, as you know, move very quickly. So we'll have these meetings in January with AOC. The nice thing with AOC, having the lobbyists, our lobbyists are in the 6 topic areas. And so they're looking at every bill that hits the ground and determining which ones are of impact to counties, and they're paring that down for us. We don't have a lobbyist or anyone in Salem specifically for us as Tillamook County.
I understand that.
So it can be challenging to sift and sort all the bills. However, as bills become, we become aware of bills, absolutely bringing them to say, this one is really important for Tillamook County. There was a CAFO bill, for example, that is very important, and we expect a version of that may come back this cycle, so we have our eye out for a CAFO bill. There are housing bills that are coming through that are important. You are probably familiar with the utility bill that's coming back. That one, if I understand correctly, a work session was put together. There's been utilities and counties have been talking over the last, whatever, it's been 6 months.
On the road fees.
On the road fees and the utility right-of-ways. So there's been negotiation going on, and I think we are expecting, in fact, that a bill may come, a co-sponsored bill may come in front of the legislature that has the agreement of utilities and counties. So that's one that has some specific work that's happening. So there's a number of them that we know are returning this time that didn't make it last time. There's another one we're just talking about today. There's one coming out of Natural Resources that was impactful. It's on my thing.
Well, I'll follow the
Yeah.
AOC stuff and go online, but I'm just thinking about knowing how the legislature works. What's important to Malheur County may be entirely different than what's important to us. And
Sure.
and we can speak for ourselves, but then there's strength in numbers too. So it's a balance of how you do
Absolutely.
it. In the short session, it's, you're playing a whole lot more defense than offense typically, and it will happen. And I know all of us talk with our legislators from time to time, and so that's a good thing. But it goes so fast, it's over, and then you say, well, if we'd known more about that, we could have said this.
Right. Yeah, I think our challenge is, how do we know?
Yes.
With the regular session with 3,000 bills dropping or whatever, it was a horrendous number of bills dropping. It's not like we have the bandwidth here to find bills unless they're bubbled to the surface through either AOC or like the Fairs Commission as their lobbyists. So I think part of it is also I'm connected to lobbyists around childcare and homelessness because those are issues that are important to me in the work that I do. So that's the other piece, is connecting to those other organizations outside of AOC that help you keep your eye on the bills. I'm sure that the libraries probably have an association that probably has a lobbyist that keeps their eye on things for that. And, you know, there's just lots of spaces and places to do it. But I think bringing them here, if we see ones that we go, that looks like Tillamook County should have their eyes on it.
And we can definitely use this session to talk about it as soon as we get some information about what, you know, in starting with what bills our legislators are going to sponsor. You know, that because presumably it would have some impact here, maybe not because their district is bigger than us, but you know, as soon as we have some information, let's start talking about it here. I think that's great. And I have testified to things for the fair, and that information has come from Betsy Johnson and also from Cammie, because Cammie Von Sagan finds out, you know, immediately what's going on. And so I agree with Aaron that it sort of bubbles up organically, but there may very well be things we miss. So I think it'd be great to.
Well, I'll watch it as closely as I can too, and I'm in the process now of setting up with my liaison responsibilities, including the fair, and also I'll get plugged into that. And like I said, I'm already plugged in pretty well to Lightwave and now some on the roads and others, but I'll get to them, and you're quite right. I think the fair does have a contract lobbyist. Has the county ever had a little book called the Capital Club? It's all the lobbyists, registered lobbyists in Oregon, and it was started years ago. Some of you remember Frank Bronner. Remember Frank Bronner? He started the Oregon Bankers Association 30 years ago, and then he retired and he moved in Escowin, and I got to know him fairly well. And in fact, when we had one of our former governors, Governor Roberts, speak at our chamber, he had made the arrangement because he knew her rather well, because two of her husbands were named Frank and he was the third, and the children or something were afraid that she hooked up with another Frank, but it wasn't. That was a lobby relationship. But anyway, he had started what was known as the Capital Club, and they publish, I think, to this day, and I've got an older copy, but it's a book that lists every lobbyist who's registered, and they're all registered, and the various industries or businesses that they represent. And it's really quite useful, because if you're interested in who represents Nike, so you go to, and it will tell you, and they probably have several, and they tell you who they are, phone number, email, and all that. So I'll see if I can get my hands on one of those books. It's really quite valuable. If we found something we needed to talk about, then you go to the lobby people, and they'll return your calls and say, okay, what about this, or can you send us material, or can we visit, you know, whatever we need to do. But and I know this session goes so fast. But, there you go. Did you look up the Capital Club? Well, there you go.
There it is.
Find it
We don't
online.
even need the physical book.
There you go. So better yet. Anyway, so that's the only other question I have, and maybe this is another one. When I'm going through all the emails and things I had, there were some requests that I do certain things. One of them, and I guess I'll ask if the county has done this. There's a 20-minute program on what to do with an active shooter. Have you been through that?
I just saw that come through our CIS Learning Center.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, it's through the County City Insurance Learning Center,
So-
and we're all being asked to take that training.
Okay, so that's an online, and okay, so
Yeah.
I just make time to do that, and it just happened, you click on it, down it comes.
Yep, yep.
The CIS Learning Center has a lot of free webinars and whatnot that,
Yes.
Other trainings as well.
other trainings. It's fun when you have time.
Yeah, time. But yeah, we did just get that one. The other thing you'll get monthly is you'll start getting a monthly cybersecurity training that'll come to your inbox, and it's called Ningio, and it's just a little 4-minute video you watch that talks about some particular
I
type
got
of
that, and I
cybersecurity.
wondered, in fact, I wrote that down.
First time I got it to, I'm like, is this real?
Never heard of it. Well, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I can be educated.
Yes, you'll get to learn all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's IS's intention to continue to have continual training for county employees on cybersecurity issues. And it's pretty useful, you know, they're brief and just little snippets of information that, watch this, like Aaron said, short video and,
Yep.
yeah.
They do have to answer a quiz at the end.
Yeah.
Yes, so typical.
Okay, well, good. Well, thank you then. That's all the others. I do have a few more questions here, but I can visit with her one-on-one, I think.
Would you like me to send a email to the woman who does the interviews for Tillamook today and just introduce you by email and ask if,
You could, but didn't, Debbie, didn't you do that and contact her? And-
I did, and I'm still waiting to hear from her.
Okay, so I think that's already been done,
Okay.
and.
I'll double check with her.
Okay, no, her, I'm just curious, that's one of my
yeah, I
things
was
to
wondering
follow
if
up
she
on.
just wanted to plug you into David's spot, because she has monthly spots for each of us.
Okay, and so you just show up, you do that live at the station or online?
You can do it either way, you can do it remotely or in person.
And she has some prepared questions too that she can.
Not
sometimes-
usually, I mean, not with me. She, usually, there's a, she'll ask me, anyway, she'll say, hey, what do you want to talk about? And so I go in with an idea about something I want to talk about that month, and then sometimes she'll have questions she wants to ask about it, or sometimes we just talk about it. The way that show was established way back when with Mildred Davy was, it's supposed to be like a conversation at your kitchen table over coffee. So it's just your opportunity to talk
Sure.
about stuff.
Yes. Yes, well, I remember I was on her show a few times for one thing or another way back when, but, and this one, I think I've been on it maybe a couple of times for one thing or another, but basically it's more Tillamook focused than North or South County, and probably for the reason you can't receive it as well on radio, but now online that might change as well, but anyway, yes, I will follow up on that and get over there as soon as there's a slot available.
Yeah, and it is a live radio show, so it's, I'm just telling you that because when on the rare occasions when somebody doesn't show up, I know it's frustrating for them because they have, you know, open air time.
Yes, I understand. Well, years ago, many years ago, when I was in high school and college, I worked at a radio station.
Oh, there you go.
And it was
That's right.
not unlike this one, it was
Yeah.
little KIHR in Hood River.
That's right.
And so, yes, I know exactly, and when that second hand, now it's digital, but used to be when that red hand came up there, you gotta be ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's pretty, I guess the first couple times I did it, I was a little bit nervous, but it really does just feel like, well, you'll be a natural since you've done it before. It feels like a conversation now.
Well, that's what it is, and that's one of the great things about a small community is, you've got different ways of communicating, and people can actually see a face when they're listening on the radio sometimes, so.
People listen
okay.
to it, and they listen to the podcast after the fact. People talk to me about it, oh, I heard you on radio. Yeah, and if they miss them, they go to the podcast, so that's kind of cool.
Okay, well, thank you, I'll keep that going here and get it done, and then when you can have 15 minutes there, I'll ask a few more questions.
Whenever you need them.
Okay, thank you. That's
Rachel
all.
is very gracious. You can just knock on her door, drop into her office.
Well, I'm
She'll almost
watching that.
always
the
say, "Come
button.
on in."
I'm afraid to go in on the wrong button.
Green means go. Turn around and go back to your right.
Okay, we have anything else?
I don't think so, no. Enough for today.
Anything, Sean?
Nope, working with Debbie to get some, budget workshops scheduled.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have a quorum by then.
Yeah.
So what's a quorum doing for, okay? I would think that out of 4 candidates, we should have 1 well qualified at least, and hopefully all 3, so we'll see how it goes.
Last year we scheduled time with all of our liaison departments and Sean to go over their budgets. Are we anticipating doing that? Planning on doing that again?
How do you feel it went?
I thought in some cases it was helpful and in some cases less so.
If I said to you, or if I you wanna look at your liaison lists, and if you think the ones that are just, fine, and maybe just get with ones that might have big projects coming up, might have big capital improvements, big asks.
Okay. Yeah, maybe ones you think they're gonna change things significantly.
I can't see the health department changing a whole bunch of things significantly.
So you can?
I can't.
Oh, you can, gotcha.
So for Doug's benefit, last year, we each made an appointment with our liaison department and Sean to go over the budgets, which you might want to do with your liaison
Yeah,
departments.
I
just because
definitely
it's your
would.
first
That's
time.
very, very good idea. In fact, I had something in mind to, begin talking about that just when we start meeting regularly.
Yeah.
A good start, and I know when the budget season starts, and I know what a tough taskmaster she can be, so. Yes, that would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, and especially, for you as a new incoming commissioner, but also, I was thinking for newer directors, but maybe we don't.
Don's on yes to it.
But he did the budget last year, so it's not his first.
And he reached out when he had any questions about if he could do this, that, or something else.
Yeah. So I guess it'll be me who needs a lot of hand holding for the parks budgets.
Okay.
Okay, good, thank you. All
I
right,
can do that.
and when are we gonna ask departments to start working on their budgets?
So budgets will go out the first part of February, and then I'll need them back first part of March, so we've got a month. But
Okay.
that's just to be able to get them together for the budget committee and post online.
And then are we gonna do a mid-year budget review? I know we don't, we have only the commissioners seated at the moment, but we kind of skipped over that.
I'll have some stuff on Monday at the leadership.
Okay.
If that works.
I will be in Salem, I won't be at leadership, but I'm sure that everybody else will be.
Is it recorded?
What's that?
Is the leadership team meeting recorded? Okay.
I'll watch it when I get back.
If you have any specific questions you have, let me know. I'll answer.
So Doug, what Aaron was talking about earlier is the AOC meetings that are online on a Friday, but then the following Monday, they're in person in Salem, and you can go or not. But Aaron likes to go in person, and you might like to also. then
Well, I'd
she
like
likes
just to get the flavor of it and see, the faces behind.
Yeah.
Well, you probably can see them on, but that's why I said before, I prefer, I guess I'm old school, I like to meet somebody at least the first time. Then the Zoom meetings are much easier after you've met someone and you actually
I
know
agree.
the
Yeah,
person
I
and
agree.
who visited with them and all of that. So yes, I will find a way to go over there at some point. And so it's basically every week
No, it's once a month.
or once a month.
There's typically it's the first Friday and Monday of the month. Sometimes it gets shifted for a holiday, or, if Friday is in the prior month, but Monday's in the next month, you don't get that Monday, it's the next one. So I can go through all that with you, and we'll make sure that you get on the AOC list. I figured they would pick that up, and they have not, so we'll get you on there so you
I
get
did get
invites.
a letter from the manager, whatever her title is.
Gina.
From Gina Nickel, yeah.
Gina Nickel, Furman Nickel.
Yes.
Who used to sit here.
That's right.
Years ago, but anyway, so yes, I saw the welcome, but there wasn't any reference to
Always,
meetings. It
yeah.
was just kind of a formal
Sure.
letter, welcome
Sure.
and all of that.
I'll
Which I appreciate.
invite you to everything for Friday and Monday, and you can attend whatever of them you want. And then I'll make sure that you're on their list. I'll reach out to, I think, Sarah Gamani.
Yeah, I put the list in, or I put the request in a couple weeks ago,
Did you?
so you should be on
Okay.
there, but if you're not
Okay.
picking them.
Okay, well, I'll go through, I've got a tremendous amount of emails and.
They could be hiding in there, because
They could.
all the agendas came out over this last week for all the meetings, so they could be hiding in there.
Okay, well, I'll read it, and I don't delete much, I just put them in another folder in case I have to go back, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, that will help.
Okay. Anything else? Anything, Rachel? Anything for folks joining us remotely? Going once, going twice? All right, then we will adjourn this meeting at 3:54 p.m.